On today's episode of Warehouse Safety Tips, we're going to be talking about out with the old and in with the new, the things that worked this year, the things that didn't, and focusing on the future. So stay tuned. Welcome to Warehouse Safety Tips. If you're a seasoned vodcast viewer, this vodcast is going to be different from most that you watch. It's based around exactly what the name implies, warehouse safety tips. And since the people in this industry are busy, we know that time is money, so each episode will be as short and to the point as possible. And now, with all that out of the way, let's get to the vodcast. As we come to the end of the year, we want to focus on the things that have happened in our facility that are going to shape next year. We're looking at the things that worked, the things that didn't work, and again, like we said in the beginning, focusing on what we can do in the future. So here are going to be a few tips that are going to help you with that because we want to really delve into exactly what it is that makes safety work at your facility. So when we talk about out with the old and in with the new, we want to let you know one thing. When it comes to the statement, we've always done it that way, there's always room for improvement. Another saying that might happen at a facility is if it's not broke, don't fix it. So we want to let you know we're not talking about taking things that do work and getting rid of them. We're talking about if you have always done something a certain way, that there's always room for improvement. And at the same time, if it's not broke, we're not saying don't fix it. We're just saying let's see what we can do to make it even better. So that's exactly what these tips are going to provide. So, the very first thing that we want to talk about is going through and celebrating wins and also learning from mistakes. So, that's going to be the things that happen correctly at your location, the stuff that kept your days since an accident number high, and then the things that may have happened that are going to keep your days since an accident at zero and climbing from there. So, you want to make sure that you go through and examine the things that are working and not working, finding ways that you can avoid the stuff that didn't work, finding ways that you can improve upon and do more of the stuff that did. Very simple. So, the next thing that we want to talk about is going to be going through and identifying hazards proactively. So, that is going to be finding things before they happen, making sure that you do regular walks, making sure that you take input from people, making sure that you are just constantly and never endingly improving at your facility. The next thing we want to talk about is prioritizing PPE compliance. This is one that we talk about throughout the year. We will always continue to do so, and that is the use of personal protective equipment. You want to do it not because management's looking, not because they say that you have to, but because you know there's a reason. If you are in an area and there is a potential for falls or bumps or things like that, you want to make sure you always have on your hard hat, not because someone told you to, but because it's something that can save your life. Same thing with glasses, gloves, your safety shoes. It doesn't really matter what the PPE is. Wear it not because someone's looking or because you're told you have to, but because something has happened either at your facility or another facility that has caused people to say this is an area where PPE is required. So, absolutely always do that and never waver from it. The next thing is improving upon emergency awareness. So, that's going to be how you act if something happens. That could be everything from a tornado, a flood, a fire, a chemical leak, anything that's going on at your facility that is above and beyond the norm that you have to get out. You want to make sure, number one, that you have cleared all of your emergency exits at all times, not during an emergency, because you never know when that's going to happen, but always having it done. Having that proactive safety mindset that knows that there could be important people coming through. There could be an emergency. There could be someone walking through that doesn't see what they're doing. You can't see it, and maybe you can. I guess I could probably pull up my shirt. But if you look here, you'll see that I have a gigantic gash on my arm. I was carrying some ham at a going to a function this weekend, stepped on a dog toy and literally fell down the stairs. So it is something that you never expect, but you got to be prepared for. So if you have emergency preparedness, you'll never have to worry about getting ready for an emergency because you'll already be ready. So the next thing we want to talk about is maintaining equipment. You want to make sure that you always maintain equipment, not because it's on a checklist, not because of any other reason, but you want to keep that machinery not only in the best working condition as possible for monetary and safety reasons, but because you want to make sure that when you're on it, it is performing exactly as it's supposed to. So make sure you always triple check and perform maintenance. And then the last thing is we want to give you a couple extra steps, a couple bonus suggestions. One is always keeping safety first with a safety culture. If you have a safety culture in place, a culture means that people embrace it, that it becomes something that people want to do, and that's something that they feel if they miss it, they're missing out on something. Safety is without a doubt in the category of stuff that you want that to happen. But the next thing is just making sure that you review and adapt. It's exactly what we talked about at the beginning, and it's how we're going to wrap this broadcast up. And that is looking at the stuff that worked, working at the stuff that didn't, or looking at the stuff that didn't, and going through and figuring out a way that you can benefit from those, reviewing and adapting. So until we meet next year, I want to thank you for being part of another Warehouse Safety Tips. Thank you so much for everything that you do. We couldn't do it without you. If you have any tips or tricks that you'd like to let us know about, by all means, comment on the post. We'd be more than glad to answer you. And again, until we talk to you next time, have a great day, stay safe, and here is a word from one of our sponsors.
It's scientifically unexplainable. It's virtually indestructible. And it's taking over the entire planet. But in a really good way. It's Mighty Line Floor Tape, the most durable floor tape in the world. 7 times thicker than average floor tape. Beveled to endure pounding warehouse traffic. And backed with a super strong peel and stick adhesive, so you'll never have to worry about painting shop floors again. Mighty Line Floor Tape, the only durable stripe.